Well, here we are. We're asking Andrew, church planter extraordinaire. I know I just come up with a different adjective each week, and he sort of frowns at me. But we're asking Andrew our church planning questions within the Geneva Push Network, and you have the opportunity to put your questions. Somebody sent in this question, Andrew. What are some of the key things you should work out before you plant? Okay, so what are the things you really should knock on the head before you start planting?
Yeah, okay. There's a whole list of things that you can actually give yourself to work out before you plant, and there's some actually good literature around. I actually haven't used it myself, but I hear it's good. There's a workbook by a guy called Philip Bryant. He's a Baptist guy, and I think he's in Perth somewhere now. But he wrote a book called Church Planting Workbook, and that takes you through, within a couple of years of starting, what do I do? And he takes you through the three stages of conception, gestation, I think he calls it, and then prenatal, something like that. And that has quite a detailed list, and that's a good thing to get hold of, work out what you want to do. There's another guy called Stuart Robinson, an Anglican from Sydney, who's written a book called Starting Mission-Minded Churches. That's I understand that's helpful as well. But just for mine to pick up a couple of things, I think before you start, in that 2-year period, that's the kind of period we're talking about, yes?
Yeah,
yep.
The run-up to, I guess, to the launch, if you like.
Yeah, okay. I reckon just to emphasise the need to get yourself sorted out. Church planting is a real test of who you are and what you think, and that'll be a real challenge. And you need to actually have thought into and articulate your own mind on all kinds of things, because you are the key human resource that will make or break the church plant. You and your family, your wife, and so on. So get yourself sorted out. Get trained. Make sure you have been trained. You are being trained theologically and in ministry. And one of the previous questions, I talked about some of those things you can do. Get to a church and get some ministry experience happening. Get yourself assessed. Make sure you've been assessed.
Can I just stop you there, because we talk a lot about assessment, but maybe people don't understand the necessary benefit of it. I mean, people planted churches before assessment came along.
How? Yeah.
But I mean, why would you say it's a must? You're obviously fairly strong on it.
Yeah, look, I've now experienced quite a number of assessment processes with guys who are interested in planting, and it's quite powerful. It gives, you can do it organically. You can do the assessment through a mentor that you've been working with for 10 years in a church context somewhere, and that's significant. That ought not to be underrated. That's powerful as well. But even having had that, to then try and put down on paper who you are, what you're about, how your marriage works, what you think theologically about a bunch of stuff, how you think strategically, what you're thinking about, all of that, to put that on paper and get it out of your own head onto paper, and have 2 or 3 experienced people assess it who are outside of your context, actually unearths things that your closer mentor might not have picked up, ironically, yeah. And it really is, I've just seen it wonderfully unpack guys and unearth things that they haven't dealt with, they need to, and it's a context in which some hard words can be said too that friends might not be ready to say.
Are you saying that it's not necessarily that they're avoiding areas, just areas they might not have even considered thinking about?
Yeah, totally. So that in my normal setting, I can cruise past things. It's not that we deliberately avoid necessarily, they just don't come up. But when you're forced to go through a systematic process of assessment, it helps you deal with a whole bunch of stuff, yeah.
Okay, so assessment, great, that's something that's got to be done. We've talked about almost work experience, if you like, the idea of being around other church planters. What about checking out other models? I mean, do you just go with what you know, or is there a sense in which you try and match it with the area that you're in? How should you try and work out your model?
Yeah, I think by the time you come to church plant, if you haven't worked, by that time you're into that 2-year period moving up to a church plant, much of your ministry mind's been formed. And so I guess I'd be saying to guys at that point, we want you to articulate your ministry mind, get it out. And that can help you resolve whether there still are areas that you're unformed in, and then go and find other ministry models and discuss and engage with networks of church planters. In the Shoot conference is a fantastic opportunity to chew through all of that. But I guess what I'm pointing to, Mark, is that there's a lot of it's already formed in my mind, and if I've not articulated, if I actually don't know what I think when I do think a lot, then it will trip me up in a year or as I get a core launch group around me and I'm beginning to talk ministry together. We'll surprise each other if I haven't actually expressed where I'm at and what I think about all kinds of stuff. And I think that's what often happens in a launch team. Conflict comes because we didn't know you were actually like that. And the planter says, well, I am. I just didn't explain it very well. So, yeah. I'd be encouraging guys to get all that out in their heads.
Well, I'd just touch on one more element as you sort of just finishing up there. You were talking about the core group. What's one of the things I guess you've got to do to prepare your core group? Firstly, you've got to have one, I take it, and secondly, you've got to make it clear that you're all on the same page. Are there any other key things running up to, in regards to your core group or in regards to your family that you'd say, hey, from my experience, I'd be making sure this was happening?
Yeah. First, we're keen now to call them launch groups. I think it's a helpful terminology.
I'm learning already.
Yeah. Because otherwise, you can build into the very beginning of a church a sense that this little group is always the hub and core of it, and that will inhibit growth. Now, it's a launch team which will grow and get bigger. But I think one of the things you've got to do in your launch team is do what you'll be doing for the next 20, 30, 40 years. If you're not in that very early phase, even when you're just meeting one-on-one, one amongst 10, one amongst 20, if you're not the guy who's seeking to express your Christian convictions and teach the Bible and enthuse people around the gospel and capture people to a worldview of the Christ person, if you're not doing all of that in that context, then you won't really be doing it when you're 5 years into a plant. So for mine, the launch group is just Christian ministry before you've gone public. Do what you're going to be doing for the next 20 years. Inspire people to capture the gospel and live for Christ. So in doing that, you will work through being more unified, because as you work with as you teach the Bible amongst your launch group, you will be stirring each other up to think and unify our mind on the gospel and what we're about and where we're going. So you'll be doing exactly what you'll be doing for the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Andrew, thanks heaps. For those of you listening in, if this has sparked off some other questions for you that you'd like to ask Andrew, well, an email address is going to come up on the screen in a moment. Use that, send it in, and we'll see if we can't stump him with something to do with church planning in the coming weeks. Thanks very much.
Good.